Beruchim haboim, welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Lamed Gimel Amud Beis, 5 lines from the top. The Gemara is going on the Mishnah that says, in regards to making Havdalah in the Tefillah of Marev Motzei Shabbos or Motzei Yom Tif, there's a 3-way machlokes. The Tanakama says that you insert it in the bracha of Choin Hadas. The opinion of Rabbi Akiva is that you make a separate bracha, a 4th bracha, an additional bracha on Motzei Shabbos. And the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer is that you're machnis Havdalah in Hoidah in the bracha of Moedim. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Zeiro hava rochiv chamro hava koshokiv ve'ozel Rabbi Chia bar Avin Basrei. Rabbi Zeiro was riding on a donkey, and he went, and behind him was Rabbi Chia bar Avin. Omar lei vadai de amrisu mishmei de Rabbi Yochanan halacha Rabbi Eliezer b'Yom Tif shechal yos achar haShabbos. Is it true that you held that the halacha indeed is like Rabbi Eliezer when Yom Tif comes out to be after Shabbos? We need to make Havdalah from the lesser Kedusha of Shabbos to the Kedusha of Yom Tif. There's a Havdalah that we make on Motzei Shabbos going into the Yom Tif. Is it true that you say the halacha is indeed like Rabbi Eliezer, that it goes in the bracha of Hoidah? Yes. Halacha michlal de pligi, says Rabbi Zeira. Is that so? Does that mean to say that there's a machlokes about this? Velo pligi. Is there not a machlokes? V'ho pligi rabbanon. The rabbanon argue. More the pligi rabbanon, says the Gemara, b'shar yemois hashana. When do we say that the rabbanon are arguing? That's during the rest of the year on Motzei Shabbos. Then they say you should put the Havdalah in the first bracha of Das, Choinin Hadas. But b'yom tiv shechal yois achar haShabbos mi pligi. But in this situation, when there's a different tefillah of Yom Tif after the Shabbos, and you don't have Choinen Hadas, then they would not argue. V'ha pligi Rabbi Akiva. No, but there's still a machlokes because this comes to exclude Rabbi Akiva's opinion. Because Rabbi Akiva said you make an additional bracha in the tefillah for Havdalah. Says the Gemara, Otu kol hashana kula mi'avdinik Rabbi Akiva dahashta niku v'navid kavosei. The entire year long, we don't go like Rabbi Akiva and add an additional bracha for Havdalah on Motzei Shabbos. Now, all of a sudden, we're going to get up and establish that the Havdalah requires a new bracha in the Tefillah on Motzei Shabbos when it's Chal Yom Tif. Kol hashana kula my timely avdin ke Rabbi Akiva. The Tamni Sri Tokun, Shasri Loi Tokun. Why is it that we don't go like Rabbi Akiva the entire year long? Because we have 18 brachos. We don't want to add an additional bracha for the bracha of Havdalah. Says the Gemara, B'hachanami, Shev Tokun, Tamne Lo Tokun. Also on Motzei Shabbos, when it's Chal Yom Tif, the Yom Tif Tefillah requires 7 brachos. If you add an additional bracha, then it'll be 8. That we don't want to do either. For the same reason. Omar lei, lav halacha, itmar, ela matin itmar. So he said to him, it's not the halacha that I would then doresh berabim and tell everybody that this is the halacha. But if an individual came to me, matin, I would incline myself to say to him that indeed, I'll be mar the halacha, that indeed the halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer in this situation. The Itmar, Rabbi Yitzchak bar Avdimi Omar Mishum Rabbeinu Halacha. Rabbeinu here refers to Rav. So he said in the name of Rav that is the halacha. Va'amrei lo matin. And those that say that he said matin. In other words, there are some that say he said the halacha berabim. And others say that he was only mored the halacha to a yachi that would ask him this shaila. Rabbi Yochanan Omar Moedim. Rabbi Yochanan says that the Chacham would be moideh in this situation to Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Chia bar Abba Omar Nirin. Nirin means that he would not be mar the halacha berabim. He would also not mar the halacha to a yachid. But if a person did do this, then he wouldn't say anything. B'diavad it will be okay. Omar Rabbi Zeira Nokut de Rabbi Chia bar Abba biyodcha. take that which Rabbi Chia bar Abba said in your hands. If he said nirin, then he's meduyak, and you can follow what he had said. How do we know? The daik v'gomer shmaitze mepume demaro shapir kerachva debumpedisa, because he explained with a meduyak, with a precision, the teaching of Rachva in regards to what he had said in Pumpedisa. The Omar Rachva, Omar of Yehuda, Har Habayis Stoyo Kaful, Haya, V'Haya Sotoyo Lifnim Mistoyo. In other words, he said like the words of his Rebbe that he heard the teaching from Rachva. When Rachva described the benches, so instead of calling it an itztaba, which is the normal term for the benches, he said that rather these are doubled roofed benches, and he called them stoyoi, and they are an inside row of benches as well. And therefore, since he used the word stoyo like his Rebbe Rachva, he was precise in then saying over what his Rebbe had said. And therefore also over here, he's precise when he says nirin. Omar Rav Yosef, Ano loy hai yadana v'lo hai yadana. Rav Yosef says, I don't recognize not this that says nirin, and not this that says moidim, and not this that says matin. Elo midrav Shmuel, midrav u'Shmuel yadana. Only that which Rav and Shmuel do I recognize. The takinu lon marganisa bebavo, that they established a pearl in Bavel, with the following nusach of the tefillah that we should say for Havdalah when it comes out that Yom Tov is Chal Motzei Shabbos. V'todyenu Hashem Elokeinu es mishptei tzidkecho, v'tilamdenu la'asos chukei ritzonecho, v'tanchilenu zmanei soson v'chagei nedova, v'torishenu kedusha Shabbos v'kavod moyed v'chagiga haregel, ben kedushas Shabbos l'kedushas Yom Tov hivdalta, V'ez Yom HaShvi, Mishes Yomi Masechet Kidashto, Hivdalta v'Kidashta es Amcho Yisrael b'Kiddush Osecho. And then he continues on, Vatiten Lonu v'Chulei. In other words, it comes out really like the Chachamim, because the Chachamim all year long say you machnis the Havdalah in the first bracha, the first bakasha, which is das. So too over here, you machnis the Havdalah into the middle bracha. There's only one middle bracha. You machnis that right away after Hakel HaKadosh. You machnis the Havdalah, and then you put in Vatitein Lonu. In other words, you put it in the middle bracha, and therefore that's the opinion really of the Chachamim in our Mishnah. Now our Mishnah, a new Mishnah, discusses when a person davens tefillah, he has to be careful that the words that he is saying don't have the implication of minus and apikarsus. Says our Mishnah, ha'omer al kansipor yagiu rachamecha. A person is davening, and he starts davening. He says, on the nest of the bird, that's where you then express your rachamim. You're so merciful by telling us to take away and make sure that the mother bird flies away before taking its fledglings. V'al tov yizocher shemecha. And a person who says, when he's davening, we recognize the good that you do for us. Or he says, when he's davening, moidim, moidim, he gets to the bracha of hoidah, and he says modim twice. He's so thankful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We say meshaskin oisoi. You silence that person right away and make sure that it's clear that what he's saying is wrong and shouldn't be misconstrued. Says the Gemara, Bishlama modim modim meshaskin oisoi. When he says modim twice, when he gets to the bracha of hoidah, that's very clear why we're meshaskin oisoi. Mishum de mechse kishtei rishoyos. Because it seems, it implies that there are two different Rishoyos. That means that there's HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Chalila maybe something else. So he's moedim to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Chalila he's moedim to something else. That's Shtei Rishoyos. Therefore that's obvious why we have to meshaskin such a person. V'al tov yizocher shemecho nami mashma ala toiva v'lo ala ro. When a person thanks HaKadosh Baruch Hu and says, I recognize the good that you're doing for me, but not the ra, so then it also implies that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is only involved with the good in this world, and that which doesn't appear to be good, meaning that which occurs in the world that are not to my liking, what I don't think is good in my limited capacity, that I don't recognize coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Although everything HaKadosh Baruch Hu does for the good, v'tnan, it says, Chayiv odin levarich al haro, kishem shevarich al hatov. A person has to mevarich HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even that which appears to be raw, just like he thanks HaKadosh Baruch Hu and is mevarich HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the toiva. Elo asked the Gemara, al kan sipor yagiu rachamecha my taima. But in regard to saying that a person is thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu and recognizing HaKadosh Baruch Hu, his rachamim, because he tells us to then send away the mother bird as not to take the fledglings or the beitzim of the bird in front of its mother. What's the reason for that? Pligi botrei amoroi b'ma'arova. There are two different Amorim who argue about this. Rabbi Yosi bar Avin, Rabbi Yosi bar Zvida. Chad Omar b'pnei shematil kina b'maaseh Bereshis. One says, because you're saying that in regards to the birds, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is merciful. But what about the mammals? What about the dolphins and others? So therefore, you're bringing kina l'maaseh Bereshis. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is merachim on everything and kol habriyos. The Chad Omar, the other one says, mipnei she'oiseh midoisav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu rachamim ve'enon ela gezeros. He's saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's mitzvahs are only as a result of, for me to then recognize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has rachamim. But they're gzeiros from the melech. And therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu commands us to do a mitzvah. I am expressing that I'm an eved, I'm a loyal servant to the king who gives me this tzivui, this command. But not because it makes sense to me that it's rachamim and therefore I do it. No. Says the Gemara, there was somebody who davened as a shliach tzibur in front of Rabbah, and he said the following, praising HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ata chasta al kan sipor, Ata chus v'rachem aleinu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you had compassion on the tzipur, on the mother bird. Also have compassion and mercy on us. Omar Rabbi, Rabbah appears to be praising the Shaliach Tzibur by saying, how much does this Talmid Chacham know how to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Omar lei Abaye v'ho meshaski noisetanan. There's a Feirish Mishnah. The Mishnah says you should silence such a person. The Gemara says Rabbah also knew the Mishnah. Only he was waiting to see how Abaye would react and to sharpen his Talmud Abaye. Says the Gemara also about somebody who davens for the tzibur and begins praising HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hahu denachis kamei de Rabbi Chanina. A person went to then daven before Rabbi Chanina. Omar, he said the following superlatives: Hakel, Hagodol, Hagibor, Vehanoiro, V'ha'adir, V'ha'azuz, V'ha'yorui, Ha'chazak, V'ha'amitz, V'ha'vadai, V'ha'nichbod. Himtin loy adesayim. So Rabbi Chanina was waiting till he would finish. Kisiem, Omalei, Siamtinu lekulu shavoche demarach. Did you complete all of the praises to your master, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Lameli kuli hai. Why all of this? Anan hanitlas. I mean, these three that we say, Hagodol, Hagibor, Vehanoiro, in our tefillah. Ilav de Aminu Moshe Rabbeinu ba'araisa. If it wasn't for Moshe Rabbeinu to say it in the Torah, when he says in the Torah, Hakel, Hagodol, Hagibor, Vehanoiro, Asher lo yisa ponim v'lo yikach shoichad. So therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu is a precedent. He writes it in the Torah. V'osu anshe knesset gedola v'takninhu b'tfilo. And if it wasn't for then Anshe Knesset Gedola to then put it in the nusach of our Shmona Esrei, then we couldn't even say these three praises, these three titles of HaKadosh Baruch Hu as Hagodol, Hagibor, V'hanoiro. Ve'at amis kuli hai v'azlis, and you say all of this and you continue. Moshel lemelech basar v'adom. So Rabbi Chanina tells him the following moshel. Shohoyu loy elef alofim dinarei zohov, v'hoyu mekalsin oiso b'shel kesef. There's a king so wealthy, he has thousands upon thousands upon thousands of golden coins, and a person comes along and praises the king for a little bit of his silver. Would that not be a genai for such a king? Both in the kamus, in terms of the amount, he has alofim dinar kesef, and also in the eichus, in the quality, in terms of the fact that it's gold and not just silver. So therefore, a person can't just begin praising HaKadosh Baruch Hu without the exact nusach that's already stated for us. If he davens, he has to be careful in his tefillah not to then try to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu more and beyond, because there's no end to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's praises. Says the Gemara, V'omer Rabbi Chanina, another statement Rabbi Chanina, Hakol bidei shomayim, chutz miyira shomayim. Everything is in the hands of shomayim. That means to say that all of the occurrences and all of the situations and all the circumstances are in the hands of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Nothing happens by HaKadosh Baruch Hu then making sure that it happens. However, chutz miyira shomayim, the exception is yira shomayim. Shenemar, as it states, Ve'ato Yisrael ma'Hashem Elokecha shom imach kim liyira. In other words, a person has the ability to use his bechira to choose yira shomayim. And it says in this pasuk, Ki im liyira. I asked of you just to have yira. Ask the Gemara, just to have yira. Otu yira shomayim milsa zudrasahi. Is it just a small thing, yira shomayim? That's just this, Ki im liyira. The pasuk says, V'omer Rabbi Chanina, Otzroi, Mishum Rabbi Yishmael Yochai, Ein lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'beis gnozov ela oitzel shel yira shomayim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu only has a treasure house of yira shomayim. That's how precious it is. Shenemar, as it states, Yirash Hashem hi oitzoroi. Answers the Gemara in Legabi Moshe milsa zutrosahi. In regards to Moshe Rabbeinu, it's a small, it's relatively small because of his greatness. It's a mashal of a person, they ask him for a large vessel. And he has a large vessel. Maybe he even has a very large vessel. But to him, it appears to be something small, because for him it's no big deal. People ask him for a small vessel, but he doesn't even have that. So what does he think? Like a huge vessel. He doesn't even have something small to give them. And therefore Moshe Rabbeinu, he had so much yira shomayim, such a tremendously big vessel. For him, it was considered to be a miltra zutrosahi, something that was very small. Says the Gemara, quoting our Mishnah, moidim meshaskin oisoi. If the shliach tzibur says modim twice, so then we quiet him. Says the Gemara, Omar B'zeiro, kol ha'omer shma shma, ke'omer moidim domi. If a person says shma twice, so that person also, we quieten him. That's like he's saying moidim twice. It has the mashmos of shtei reshuyos. And therefore we silence him right away. There shouldn't be any understanding or misunderstanding that is being said over here. There's only one HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Meisvei asked the Gemara, HaKoreh Shema v'koiflo hareze meguna. Somebody who repeats, he doubles over Shema, so it's considered to be meguna. It's not a good thing. Meguna hu dahave, but shesuki lo mishaskin alei. It only says that it's meguna, but it doesn't say that we quiet him, we silence him. Lo kasha, says the Gemara, hodamar milsa v'tanilo. This that he says the words Shema twice, he says Shema, and then he says out loud Shema again, then we say that person is meguna. But if he says the entire pasuk, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and then again he says Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad out loud, then Meshaski Noisoi. There are some Mishavarshim that explain the opposite way, that if he says Shema, then Meshaskin also. But he says Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, the whole pasuk, and then he repeats it, then it's a genai, it's davar meguna, but it's not Meshaskin oisoi. Either way, one should be careful not to do that. Ask the Gemara, ask the Gemara le Rapapo, la Abaye, v'dilma mikora, lo have kiven daite, ulesoif kiven daite. Maybe in the beginning, he didn't have the proper kavanah. We know when it comes to Kriya Shema, the Mekayim Kriya Shema is not just good enough to know that you're performing a mitzvah. You have to then make sure that you are understanding the words that you're saying and the inyan, the mashmos of what you're saying. So therefore, maybe he didn't have the proper kavanah the first time. That's why he had to repeat it a second time. Says the Gemara, Omar le chavrusa klapi shmaya mi'ika. Is he just a friend of yours that you're saying Shema without the proper kavanah? And therefore, you're not careful to make sure that Shema is being said in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu with all of its proper thought. Iloi kavin daite mi'ikara machaninale beparzvasta devnafcho ad mechavin daite. We train him to say Kriya Shema properly. Although it's 6 words, it takes time to train. And one has to put all of his thoughts aside in order to focus on those words of Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And we train him to do that. If still he doesn't get used to it, and nonetheless he's not careful, then the Gemara says very strongly over here, then he's hit over the head with an anvil. Either way, if a person naturally sometimes his mind wanders and he doesn't say Shema properly, so he should be careful not to say it out loud a second time, and therefore say it quietly that nobody else hears. It shouldn't have the mashmos chas v'sholom of shtei rishuyos.